First things first, how are you?
I'm well. A little bit tired, but we're getting there.
Very good to hear. So, where I want to start with is, like I said, I have this line that I read in your bio, and I think that's an interesting starting off point, where it reads, I tried everything to not do music. So, here we are.
Yes, doing music.
What was your upbringing like in terms of music? Was it immediate?
So I started out playing classical violin when I was 7. I was actually living, though I was born in New Zealand, my parents moved to the Netherlands when I was 3. And when I was 7, I actually started violin lessons here in Amsterdam. So I started on classical music, and I wanted to be a classical musician. But then I got to the end of did a lot of practice, hours a day, and then got to the end of my high school, and I was like, maybe not. And yeah, so an early start to music, but I didn't. Yeah, and then I kind of gave it up and tried to do sensible things.
When you were, well, first of all, did you enjoy playing the violin?
I think I did. I especially enjoyed playing folk music. My family decided we should have a family band at some point in time when I was quite young, in my early teenage years. And so I really enjoyed playing at like folk festivals and with this kind of family band. But I had a lot of trouble with this shoulder, and I associated pain with playing music, because as soon as I played for more than 5 minutes, it was pain. And I didn't realize that other people didn't have this. So I'd be in an orchestra playing, and then everyone just be doing their thing, enjoying themselves, and I'd be like, ow! And it wasn't until later on that I realized, okay, there was actually some issues here. And so for years I had associated music and pain, or my brain had. So it took a bunch of different kind of things to like disassociate that kind of feeling.
And those folk festivals, concerts that you went to with your family, what was for you the appeal of folk? Was it the instrumentation, like you said, you like folk violin, or were the words important to you as well?
I think it was an idea, like it's a feeling that, like, for me it was a lot of Celtic music, so Irish and Scottish and English, and for some reason it just kind of got me in here. So that's what I used to listen to when I was younger, a lot of world music, and I think just the energy of it kind of really got me going. And I think that was probably the main thing, just the energy and also there's a tradition as well with folk music that goes a long way back, storytelling.
Right.
Yeah.
And then you say, well, you have pain in your shoulder, you try to get away a little bit from playing music.
Yeah.
When did it draw you back in?
Well, so I'd always had the option, I think, well, not always had the option, there'd been a possibility of like going down a different path other than classical. And I always thought that if I did that, I'd just end up in a gutter somewhere, having done all the drugs and like just ruined myself. That's what I thought. I thought, what I need...
Why?
I need this structure. That's what I thought. Because I'm a pretty like laid back kind of person in myself. So I thought, if I get some structure, get a proper job, that'll keep me under control. So for that reason, I just never thought about doing that music as a full-time thing. I thought, if I do this, it'll be the end of me. But I worked a number of like quite dumb jobs for a long time, studied 2 different degrees and didn't finish them. So I studied primary school teaching, worked in supermarkets, worked at KFC, worked as a storeman, studied electrical engineering, and then finally in 2012, I was like, I'm going to do music full time. And I thought, I'll tell all my friends and family, and they were just like, oh, thank goodness.
Well, this might sound as a silly question then, but what could music, and I don't know if you were writing at this point, but what could music and writing music do for you that all those other jobs or vocations couldn't?
I think because I started out as a street performer, there was a direct connection between me playing and me eating. So
Sure.
if I wanted to if I wanted to survive, I needed to play. If it was raining, still got to play. Figure out how to do it. Go into a train station, play somewhere else, set up an umbrella, do whatever you can to survive. And I think there's kind of a little bit of a healthy ambition that can come with music. Sometimes it can be unhealthy, but for me it was like healthy to have that, like, okay, do the thing, succeed, this is an opportunity. So rather than looking for something else to create structure for me, I was able to go, I'll create, I can push forward and do something, and that was quite helpful.
When was the first time when you felt you wrote a good song, or you thought, well, I'm actually quite proud of what I'm doing right now?
I think the funny thing was it was probably the first song I wrote,
Okay.
but it wasn't good. So that's, like, I think as soon as I wrote a song, I was just like, everybody,
Okay.
this is amazing. But like, this is like when I was probably 16 and well before I'd started doing music in any meaningful kind of way. You know, you just go to parties and have a guitar and try and play it to people that don't want to hear it and all that sort of thing. But I think for me, I know that I've written a good song if it conveys an image, like a picture in the mind. So for me, the best songs that I love from other artists, I can see the song. You know, you think about that song and all of a sudden an image pops into your head, and because the writing is poetic, and so for me that ability to visually see a song is really important. So if I know for myself that I've done that and I've created word pictures and that sort of thing, then I feel pretty happy with it.
Well, that's interesting, because that again is then that storytelling side of what folk music does a lot.
Absolutely, yeah.
So when you started writing, was it more in a narrative style, or did you pull stuff out of your own life?
I started off very much pulling sad things out of myself when I was... So I got a guitar and I started writing sad songs.
Specifically sad?
It was more just there's a strong tendency to want to write when you're sad. You know, I need to get these feelings out. And some of the best songs that have ever been written have been sad songs for that reason. But once I'd written, like, I'd always write a song that was sad but then had a hopeful twist at the end. And then I'd written like 20 of those songs and I was like, this is not good. Like, some songs will be sad, but I can't only write when I'm sad. So I need to discipline myself to actually write when I'm hopeful, or when I'm nervous, or when I'm worried about the future, or when I'm delighted with something, or when I'm grateful, and to write in all sorts of different ways so that I get an album that has a full reflection of, like, the human experience.
Have the full spectrum of emotions.
Yeah.
Right. I don't know where in the timeline, but when did you, because obviously discovering the looping pedal and realizing that you didn't need 4 other guys to do it, that must have been quite a big change for you.
Yes.
So when was this in kind of the timeline of all?
So it was at the very beginning.
Okay.
Yeah. So I bought a loop station on credit when I shouldn't have, because I walked into a music store, had no plan, bought it, then went home and thought, oh, what have I done? And I remember thinking distinctly, I hope I can pay this off using music, not just like my job, which was driving forklifts at the time. And then I went into my lounge and just like jammed out with a loop pedal, and I just thought, this is the coolest thing. And then I started doing some street performance and playing like cafe shows where I get like $20 to play, and then from there I started thinking maybe I could do this. And
did it, because obviously you listen to a lot of music, you used to play with your family, but did it change how you looked at music, because you have all these different elements? You played a bass line, melodies, it's everything together.
I think it did, yeah, because when you're a looper, you have to be an instrumentalist for all the various instruments, but more importantly, you need to be an arranger. So you need to be able to think, this needs to go here, that needs to go here. And with the violin, you only have one, it's a melody. It's not even like singing and playing the guitar, which is melody and harmony. So it was a bit of a transition, but I really enjoy that side of things.
And well, we mentioned the kind of the Celtic influences, so that kind of continued. So did you seek out? I don't know how many instruments you could play at that point, but did you kind of seek out certain instruments?
Definitely. So I bought like the world's worst bass guitar, like from a second-hand store. It was so bad. And I played that on like my first and maybe second album.
Okay.
And so like I've got and then every time I went into a music store, I was like, oh, I should add this, and oh, I should add that. But it's mostly been the same lineup for a couple of years now. Yeah.
So when you write then, do you still just grab an acoustic guitar, or do you write on all kinds of instruments now?
Yeah, I actually write on all kinds. So sometimes acoustic, a lot of the times it's the baritone ukulele, a lot of times it's mandolin, and sometimes it's based around a jam on the loop pedal itself.
Okay. And then going towards where we are now, you have an album.
Yep.
The Long Way Home. So what was the starting point? What was the jumping off point? Did you have a song? Did you have a...
So it was a collection of songs from like a decent like period of time. A lot of them were like within the last year or so, but a few of them went right back, like maybe 3, 4, 5 years.
Okay.
Like a track called To Be Found by Love was written like 5 years ago.
Okay.
But I didn't make it onto my last album, but it kept coming back, and I was like, this needs to be in there. And I probably didn't have the skills at the time to do a decent job on the album. So yeah, I think I recorded most of it, or all of it basically, before leaving New Zealand.
Okay.
So it's kind of a journey album, but like it's a lot of talking about travel and moving through time and different locations, but it was written before I went on the journey.
Right.
Which is, I mean, I've been traveling with music for years, but like properly moving overseas. So yeah, kind of a...
Almost like a premonition.
Yeah. It's like, this is what I think it... Yeah, so a lot of that was in the back of my mind.
Let me ask you this then. When you were writing these songs, did you have some sense of wanderlust or the idea that you needed to go somewhere?
I'm not sure if I did, but I think the idea behind the title and the title track is that there is that sense of like wanting to be found in a place, and like I imagine that I'm going to end up living back in New Zealand at some point in time, but in the meantime, like I'm taking the longest possible way to get back home.
Right.
So that's the idea behind that. And I don't know how long that will be. And there's that question of like, do you find yourself along the way? Do you come back as the same person? Who do you become while you're on the road? And is home even the same when you come back? It's all those kind of questions.
Those are quite significant questions.
Yeah.
And if you, I don't know how long you've been in the Netherlands, but have you felt a certain change in yourself, or maybe the approach you have towards your music, towards what you want to do with it?
I'm not 100% sure. It's interesting moving back here because I lived here for 6 years and went to primary school, spoke fluent Dutch. It's not very good now. I can still read it, but no chance of speaking at the moment. And so a decent part of my formation as a person was in the context of the Netherlands. Those are 3 to 9 as formative years.
Sure.
So I think I turned up and I was just like, this is nice. Like I've always been way too direct in New Zealand. Like my wife who's from New Zealand, and I'm also born there and all that, but like it's a kind of, there's a lot of Dutch traits that I have.
Right.
So for me, this feels very natural.
Oh, that's very interesting.
Yeah.
Getting back to the music then, when do you feel that because you mentioned this was written a while ago in a certain time period, does that whenever you play these songs or put on the album, I don't know if you do, but does that transport you back to that time and kind of that feeling when you wrote it and when the bones of this album were made?
I think certain songs definitely do, especially reflecting on it. Certain songs, a lot of them were written while like at a beach house in like beautiful locations in New Zealand. So certain songs are very strong locational kind of things for me. Other songs were written like during a songwriting challenge.
Okay.
So you're like, I need to write a song a day for 40 days. So you actually end up writing songs that have truth in them, but they're not necessarily from your own experience or even the location. So there's songs on there about like a failed gold mining expedition. So like someone who's just thrown their whole life into something and it's not worked out. And that's not from my own experience, but it was written in a location where that had happened a lot. So it's someone else's experience. So there's a truth to it, hopefully. Because not everybody who goes looking for gold comes back with gold. In fact, most don't.
But I think even that story is true for a lot of things in life.
It's metaphorical.
I was going to say, it is chasing something that you want, a certain dream, and then whether it's going to work out, that's a second question. So, or a different question. So, when you embarked on this whole, and you've talked about this in the bio as well, but when you embarked on this path of music and busking, let's say, and then having some difficult times along the way. That dream, what kept that dream alive? Well, what was that dream, and what drove you towards it?
I suppose it wasn't necessarily even that much of a dream in the future.
Okay.
Like I want to play to stadiums or anything like that. It was literally, I started it and I didn't have a plan B. So I just carried on doing it. So it was like, when you've got a plan B, which is, okay, I'm going to go back to if this doesn't work, I'll go back to my accounting job. For me, I had no plan B. I did all these random, like I can do plenty of things, but there wasn't anything that was like my safety net.
Right.
So the option was make it work, or I don't know, there just wasn't that in my mind. So that's kind of helped. You don't second guess and go, should I be doing this? It's like, okay, I am doing this, so how can I make it work?
Right, and then it's kind of figuring out a way to fit with your personality and the way you like to do things. Finally then, because you mentioned another thing that's quite interesting in terms of songwriting, because I hear this every once in a while, that there's a very different thing between songwriting as a craft and then kind of waiting for divine inspiration. So, if you take this record in particular, you mentioned some of the songs were challenges in a way. So, what is your view on songwriting? Do you just get up at 8 in the morning, write, or do you wait for some form of inspiration?
I think I'm much more the inspiration kind of thing. Yeah, that's much more my vibe. And I can't write songs until I haven't played music for a while. So if I can't write songs while I'm on a tour. What happens is like what's happened recently. I came back from a 3-month tour in North America and I put away the instruments for like 2 months. And then I'll be like, ooh, okay, I'll go grab that. And then I've written some songs recently because the creative stuff starts flowing again. But in saying that, there's been times where I'm like, this is my trade. I need to do this.
Right.
So it's been like good friends in New Zealand where I've been like, right, we are writing a song a day for 40 days or for 7 days, or I need to do, and so in that context you produce things in a much more forceful kind of way, and some of that's going to be really bad, but some of it's going to be pretty good. So
final question, then you mentioned taking a couple months off after the long tour. What are those months like? Is it kind of agony staying away from music, or is it a relief in a way?
It's probably a relief because that's where I like sit down and listen to other people's music. Music is amazing, but performing every night and all this. It's a tiring experience. So I really enjoy the seasonal kind of thing. It's a chance to sit down and reply to all the emails and do your taxes and
catch up with life.
Yeah, catch up, see what's going on in the normal world and
Right.
friends and all that sort of thing. So
Fair enough.
yeah.
All right. Thank you very
Amazing.
much for your time.
Cheers, appreciate it.
Thank you.